I've always heard you'll know when you know. I thought I'd be forever alone. Then you came into my life and made me feel alive. I hope we hit every stoplight. My world stops when you hold me so tight.
Sorry, how long did the relationship last?
I tried to stay with him for 5 years, and I went to my uncle, my rich uncle. My father had
Was the bad uncle that I read about?
My Uncle
let's
Johnny.
talk about him.
Yeah, I went to him because I thought he would help me with a job, because I dropped out of school in grade 8 to raise my son, and it was welfare. And I went to work at the Canadian National Exhibition at No Bet Tavern as a cocktail waitress, pregnant at 15.
Oh, yeah.
And my uncle told me, you know, you're ugly, you got a big nose, you got a kid, no one's going to want you, no man is ever going to make your life for you, so you better just become a prostitute. And he pimped me out to his clients in his business and his employees.
And how long did that go on for?
That went on for about a year. And he told me to remember that, you know, you're nothing.
Were you pregnant at the time, or you already had a baby?
No, I had my son.
Okay,
I
so
had
you
my
were
son. He was just
a baby,
months old. Yeah.
So who looked after the baby when you had to go do these jobs?
Well, my mother. I stayed at home until I was 18, and unfortunately, I left my son in the same care that I was raised because I didn't know any better. I'm not making excuses, but I used to try and stay away from home as much as I could because there was so much arguing and drinking and yelling going on. So when I had my son, then I started taking him. So I would go stay in apartments or abandoned houses or hallways of apartments or janitorial.
And what age was that
at? 16.
Okay. So you came back and forth to your mom's?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And oftentimes I would leave him with my parents, and I would stay in schoolyards all night. But when I had my son, I pretty much took him with me as much as I could. But then there got to be a time where my mom felt that she was going to try being a good parent, and she started taking an interest in my son as if it were her son. And she told me, you can't take him anymore when you're whoring around, right? My mom and my dad used to tell me that I was whoring around, right? So when you're whoring around, you got to leave Michael at home.
Did they take any responsibility at all for your childhood?
No.
Never? Not even now?
You know, the only thing my father's dead, and the only thing I ever asked my mother was just to acknowledge how tough it was. That's all she would have to say is,
and she
you know, it was really crappy, Cathrine, and it was what it was.
And she hasn't acknowledged it at all?
She was telling me recently that she used to bake every Sunday for me. I never used to eat.
So that was her delusional opinion of how she raised you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of, not kind of sad, it's brutally sad. And she probably expects you to have a relationship with her because she brought you into this world.
And, you know, I do, based on that premise alone. I don't want, you know, now that I've changed my life around, and I was bad. I mean, I was, you know, I was always trying to even the odds and even the score for something that I never had, you know, getting into medical school, forging documents to make my life better. And, you know,
How did you forge the documents? Because I remember you mentioned that in one of your articles I was reading. And I'm going, how could you forge them, and how long did it take them to figure out they were forged?
Kind of like the Catch Me If You Can movie.
Oh, okay, sorry.
But
oh, goodness gracious. I'll have to cut that out. Yeah, so you were like Leonardo DiCaprio running around being this.
Exactly.
Wow.
I was, you know,
that would be a good movie.
I had to. It would be a good movie.
Yeah.
I have optioned the story to a producer in Hollywood, but we don't have anything signed. So if you're a producer and you're interested,
I think,
shameless self-promotion, right?
Yeah, but you know what? It's a good story to get out there.
It is, because it helps so many people.
Now, were you involved in drugs?
I experimented with drugs, but mostly I sold drugs. So I sold drugs for a stint.
Okay.
But, you know, drugs, I think if I got involved with drugs or alcohol, I might be a different person, but I'm too much of a control freak, because I said all my life, I will never be like my mother. I will never be like my father. And I've stayed true to that because although I think my mother does have some good qualities, so does my father. You know, I was repulsed and repelled by their behavior and what they did, that I swore I would never become like that. So,
and you know, even though when you're raising your child, there probably were moments that things came out of your mouth and you went, "Oh my!"
My mother, myself.
Yes.
Oh, definitely.
And that's the interesting thing about this story, is that no matter how difficult your life is and what you've gone through, there will be moments that you replay some of that type of scenario that comes out of your own mouth that you can't believe.
Exactly.
Because it's so behavioral.
Well, it's like people who sexually abuse kids. Those kids sometimes turn out to be sexually abusing people themselves.
Because it's
right?
a familiar pattern.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And when I was sexually abused from the time I was 5, the first time
5. Can you believe that?
was in front of my father, but he was too drunk, like 10 feet away, and he was too drunk to see that his friend that he brought into the home was going up my pajama leg, sitting on the couch beside him. And
Did you tell anybody?
I went through a lot of counseling, especially after I started the book here.
But did you tell anybody while it was happening? You tell
No.
your mom or your dad?
No.
They would probably wouldn't believe you because they would be incoherent from the drinking anyway.
But I
right?
have to tell you too, and this is something that is very hard to admit and was very hard for me to deal with in counseling, I enjoyed being sexually abused. Now, this is something that
It's because you
my
got
counselor-
attention?
Yes.
Yeah.
And my counselor
See, that's sad. Very sad,
it's
isn't
sad,
it?
but other women feel that way too, and they don't know why.
Yes.
They feel acceptance when they're getting abused, and I think it's bad to say that they like the attention. Well, my counselor explained to me that we're sexual beings from the time we're born. It doesn't mean that we express that sexuality, but we are tuned to do things in our life later on.
And that's what-
Reproduce, have love.
But that's
that kind of,
also
right?
what you learned at a very early age. So
That's
you learned
right.
a distorted version of it.
Big time. And then I
Yes.
was, so sexually promiscuous.
Yeah.
Because
that's what you knew.
That's what I knew, and that's how I believe that people showed their love for you, right?
It's so important for parents to love their children and to tell them they love their children.
And every word you say, like when my mother found out I was pregnant when I was 15, she said, if I would have known what you were going to grow up to be like, I would have drowned you when you were born.
Yeah, see,
And I'm
that you don't
54,
forget that.
I'm 54, and I still, as I'm looking to the side off of to you, I'm seeing this little movie in my head where she's actually telling me that. You don't forget it.
No, sticks and stones, what they say, remember that expression, sticks
Yeah.
and stones can break your bones and names will never hurt you? What a bunch of crap that is.
Somehow